The interview that no one expected. The lights were soft inside the studio, but the silence was loud. Every camera was locked on the man sitting calmly in the center chair. His black suit looked simple, yet timeless. The host across from him shuffled her cue cards nervously, even though she had done this 100 times before. Tonight was different. Tonight, the guest was Keanu Reeves. Most people knew Keanu as an actor, a quiet man with a tragic past and a kind soul, but no one knew what he was about to say. No one expected a conversation with him to shake the hearts of millions, especially when the topic turned away from movies and into something far more personal and far more unexpected. The show had only just begun when the host smiled and leaned forward. "Keanu, you've always been one of the most private celebrities in Hollywood, but tonight, we're hoping you'll open up a little." Keanu gave a small nod, his eyes thoughtful, kind, yet heavy. "I'll try." That voice, calm, steady, and gentle, was instantly familiar. It didn't carry the weight of fame. It carried something older, something broken and healed many times. And as the first few minutes passed, the audience leaned in closer. The host continued softly, "You've played so many roles: action, romance, sci-fi. But who is Keanu Reeves when the cameras are off?" His answer came slowly, but without hesitation. "I'm just someone trying to survive grief, and maybe now trying to give others a little peace." There was a pause. It wasn't awkward. It was full of unspoken stories. Then Keanu's eyes drifted to the floor for a moment before returning to hers. "I lost a child," he said simply, "and the woman I loved." You could hear the silence deepen. The crew stopped moving. Even the lights seemed to dim, as if showing respect. "That kind of pain doesn't disappear," he added. "It changes you. Some days you walk like you're carrying a mountain. Other days you smile because someone held the door open. Pain teaches you how to see people." The host was silent for a moment, touched by the sincerity. Then she asked the question that would shift everything. "And yet, in all this, we heard that you once met Pope Francis. Is that true?" Keanu looked away briefly, then smiled. But it wasn't a joyful smile. It was a tired one. "Yes, I met him." "What happened?" Keanu hesitated, like he was weighing something far heavier than words. Then slowly, he began. "It was never supposed to be public. No cameras, no press. Just me, sitting, across from a man I didn't expect to understand." "What do you mean?" He leaned forward slightly, as if he needed the weight of the memory to keep him grounded. "I didn't believe he would get it. The pain, the emptiness, the anger. I thought he was just another man in robes. But when I looked into his eyes, I saw something else." The host leaned forward too, voice low. "What did you see?" "Loss," Keanu whispered. He looked at me like he had cried for strangers he never met. Like he had carried the weight of the world and still chose to pray for it, not curse it. The audience was completely still. No coughs, no movement, just breathless waiting. Keanu's voice grew even softer. He said something I've never forgotten. He said, "Sometimes, God lets us break so we can become the kind of person who can hold others." Did that help you? It did something more. It haunted me. Because for the first time in years, someone didn't try to fix me. He didn't tell me to move on. He let me grieve. The host, now visibly moved, asked carefully, "And what happened after?" Keanu gave a long pause. Then he said the words that changed the tone of the entire show. He told me a secret. There was a beat of silence. "About himself?" "About the world," Keanu replied. "About something he saw, and something he fears may come." The host's face shifted, part curiosity, part worry. "Keanu, can you tell us what it was?" Keanu closed his eyes. When he opened them again, they were glassy, but strong. His next words would begin something no one in that studio, or watching from home, was prepared for. "I can tell you," he said, "but I don't know if you'll believe me." The host leaned back slowly. "Try us." Keanu looked straight at the camera. It felt personal, as if he wasn't speaking to the lens, but to each person sitting alone in their living room or watching on their phones at night, when the world feels too loud and too quiet at the same time. "He told me," Keanu began, "that the world is losing its soul, not in the way people talk about politics or pollution, something deeper. He said that compassion is being drained like light from the sky, and that even faith has become more noise than silence." A hush fell across the entire building. He said he has seen people in power pretending to be holy, not just in the church, in every place of leadership. They wear masks, they speak in hope, but inside, they are hollow and dangerous. The host sat back, stunned. "Why did he tell you?" Keanu shrugged slowly. "I asked him why God lets good people suffer, and he said, because sometimes only those who suffer can truly see what's real." The audience was barely breathing now. "He told me," Keanu continued, "that something is coming, and he doesn't know if the church is strong enough to protect what's left of the good in the world." He looked so tired when he said it, like a man who had carried too much for too long. "Did he say what that something was?" Keanu didn't answer at first. He looked down. Then he looked into the camera again. He said it would start with silence, then division, then fear, and then people would stop recognizing truth when they heard it. His voice dropped to a whisper. He said it's already begun. The studio fell completely still. The host blinked rapidly, her face pale. "Keanu, why are you telling us this now?" Keanu looked down, his voice nearly breaking. "Because something happened last night." "And I think the Pope was right." The host stared. "What happened?" Keanu slowly looked up. His voice shook. "I got a letter from someone close to him. It was dated 3 days ago." The host's voice trembled. "And," Keanu whispered, "it said, 'The Pope has disappeared.'" Whispers behind sacred walls. The studio lights had not yet cooled when the world began to talk. Clips of Keanu's interview spread across social media like wildfire. In just hours, the video reached millions. Not because of the celebrity, not even because of the shocking mention of Pope Francis, but because of the weight in Keanu's voice when he said those final words, "The Pope has disappeared." At first, many thought it was metaphor, a poetic way to say the Pope had withdrawn from the world. But as dawn arrived in different parts of the globe, silence from the Vatican grew louder. No public statement, no denial, no reassurance. Then came the leaks. An Italian journalist known for exposing high-level corruption posted a cryptic message. "I've just seen something that terrified me." The silence is real. And it's not just the Pope. She didn't post again. Her account vanished within hours. No one knew where she had gone. Keanu hadn't returned to the public yet. After the interview, he had gone home quietly, just like he always did. But inside, he was far from calm. The letter still lay on his kitchen counter. 3 pages, handwritten, signed with initials he recognized. Chem. A cardinal he had once shared a long evening with in Rome. A man who had spoken softly, with a trembling voice, about things the world would never accept as real. The letter was not just a warning. It was a request. It asked Keanu to go back, to Rome, to find what was left of the truth. At first, Keanu refused. He wasn't a detective. He wasn't a hero. He was just a man who had lost too much and carried too little. But by the 3rd night, he could no longer sleep. Images of the Pope's eyes haunted him, eyes that had seen beyond the curtain of power and smiled anyway. He remembered that quiet lunch in a small room hidden behind ancient stone walls. The Pope had said something then that didn't make sense until now. "If I vanish one day," he said, cutting a small piece of bread, "remember that the silence is not mine. It's theirs." Keanu packed a small bag. No one knew. He told. No friends. Not even his manager. He booked a flight under a false name. Not out of fear, but respect. The kind of respect you give to the unknown when it's bigger than you. He arrived in Rome just before sunrise. The city looked as it always had. Old, warm, sacred. Tourists wandered. Bells rang. Pigeons danced in front of marble steps. But something felt off. The usual hum of peace was broken by something unseen. It felt like the city was waiting for something. Or hiding from something. Keanu walked straight to the small cafe where he had met Cardinal CM years ago. The place hadn't changed. The same green awning. The same little table in the back. But the owner, an old man with shaking hands, looked nervous when he saw Keanu. "He told me you might come," the man whispered in Italian, placing a coffee in front of him. "Did he leave anything?" Keanu asked. The man reached into a drawer and pulled out a sealed envelope. No name, no address, just a simple wax seal. Inside was a single sentence, written in trembling ink. "Beneath the room of shadows, the key waits where light is not welcome." Keanu read it twice. It meant nothing. And everything. Beneath the room of shadows. He remembered that room. Deep, beneath the Vatican library. Few knew of it. Even fewer had entered it. It was not a tourist place. It was not marked on maps. It held the oldest texts, books never translated, scrolls bound in faded leather, symbols not even scholars understood. He stood up. "Do you know where he is?" he asked the cafe owner. The man only shook his head. "He said not to trust anyone with robes too clean." Keanu left in silence, his footsteps steady. Outside, the wind shifted. The sun was up, but the warmth was missing. He made his way toward the Vatican. Not through the front gates, but through a quiet alley behind a garden wall. Years ago, the Pope had shown him this path. A shortcut, he had called it, smiling like a child keeping a secret. As Keanu approached the outer wall, he noticed something strange. The guards, usually friendly, respectful, were gone. In their place stood 3 men in plain black suits. No symbols, no names. They didn't move as he passed, didn't speak. They only watched. Inside, the corridors echoed. Keanu walked slowly, remembering the way. Down stone stairs, past paintings of saints whose eyes followed too closely through a narrow passage that led to a heavy wooden door, the entrance to the room of shadows. He pressed his hand against it. It didn't open, but there, just above the doorframe, he saw something. A small mark etched into the stone. A cross, yes, but upside down, and beside it, a circle with a slash through it. He had seen those symbols in the letter. They were old, forbidden. And now, they were carved into the Vatican itself. He stepped back, unsure. That's when he heard the whisper, a voice behind him, so soft it barely carried. "They already know you're here." Keanu turned. A woman stood in the corridor, dressed in black, with a silver necklace tucked beneath her shirt. Her eyes were tired but sharp. "Who are you?" Keanu asked. "Someone who still believes in him," she replied. "The Pope." Keanu narrowed his eyes. "Do you know where he is?" She looked past him to the door. He left something behind, something only someone he trusted could open. "The key?" Keanu asked. She nodded. "Where?" Her voice dropped. "It's not a thing, it's a place. And if you're not careful, it becomes a trap." Keanu felt a chill slide down his spine. "Why me?" he asked. "Why would he trust me?" "Because you've already lost everything," she said softly. "You have nothing left to fear." He wanted to argue. but her words were too true, too raw. She stepped forward and placed a small object in his hand. It was warm, old, shaped, like a coin, but carved with writing that shimmered faintly in the dim light. "Take this," she whispered. "When you reach the black door, place it in the hollow. But remember, what you find inside will not be what you expect." Keanu looked down at the object. When he looked back up, she was gone. Only the silence remained. He turned back to the EA door, heart heavy, breath slow. Then he noticed something else. His reflection in the polished stone beside the frame. It wasn't just his face. Behind him, a shadow moved. He turned sharply, but there was no one there. Yet in that moment, he understood. He was not alone in the Vatican, and someone, something, was already watching. The hollow beneath the black door. Keanu stood frozen in that hallway. The shadow that had flickered behind him was gone, but the weight of it remained in the air. It was the kind of presence that didn't need sound to be heard. A silent watcher, something old, maybe human, maybe not. The coin in his hand pulsed with a strange warmth, not burning, not cold, just alive, like it had been waiting for him. Its carvings shimmered faintly under the flickering wall lanterns. The writing wasn't in Latin, though the setting begged for it. This was something older, something Keanu couldn't read but somehow understood. He reached toward the black stone door again. This time his fingers didn't shake. There was a small hollow at the center, invisible to the eye but smooth to the touch. Without thinking, he placed the coin into the space. For a second, nothing happened. Then a low hum stirred deep within the wall, like a breath being held for centuries had just been released. The door didn't open outward or inward. It simply vanished, as if erased from existence. What lay beyond was not a room. It was a descent. A narrow staircase spiraled downward into darkness, untouched by any modern light. The air changed immediately, thick with dust, memory, and something ancient. The stone walls were etched with symbols that pulsed faintly as he passed them, not symbols of faith or scripture, symbols of fear. Keanu began to walk. Each step echoed, with a soft thud. The silence here wasn't peaceful. It pressed against his skin. It felt aware. After what felt like minutes, or maybe hours, he reached the bottom. The staircase opened into a small chamber, and in the center of that chamber was a table, carved from black wood, smoothed by time, and upon it, a single candle, already lit. He didn't light it. He hadn't touched anything, yet it burned. The flame danced in slow, steady movements. And on the table beside it lay another letter, this one folded in perfect thirds, sealed not with wax, but with a fingerprint in ash. Keanu's hands trembled slightly as he opened it. "If you are reading this, then I was right to trust you." It was his handwriting, the Pope's. There are things the world cannot bear to know. Truths that, once spoken, cannot be unheard. I saw something, Keanu, not with my eyes, but in a vision. And the moment I saw it, I knew I could never return to the surface. Keanu read each word slowly, his chest tightening with every line. They are not all priests. They are not all people. Some of them are echoes, shadows wearing skin. And they feed not on flesh but on despair. They do not need war to win. They only need us to forget how to love. The candle flickered violently for a moment. Keanu looked around the chamber. The walls were smooth stone, but behind him, he noticed a narrow opening, barely large enough for a man to pass through. But carved above it, again, was that strange symbol, the circle with the slash. He looked back to the letter. You must go deeper, beneath the archives, where the texts are never named, where the last secret is buried. They will try to stop you, not with guns, not with chains, but with Memories. They will offer you comfort, and in that comfort, they will erase your soul. Keanu placed the letter down, his hands shaking now, not from fear, but from knowing this was not imagination, not metaphor. This was happening. And someone, maybe something, had tried to warn him long ago. He stepped toward the narrow passage, as he squeezed through. The world behind him seemed to pull away, as if time itself was separating. The air grew colder, not physically, but emotionally. Every breath felt like it carried sadness from someone else's story. This corridor was longer, straighter, darker. The walls whispered, not loud, not sharp, but soft voices speaking in tones only the heart could hear. He recognized a few of them. His mother's voice, his daughter's laughter, the woman he had lost. Their sounds weren't perfect, but they were close enough to stop him. He paused, because part of him wanted to stay right there forever, just to hear them again, just to feel like he hadn't lost them. But then another sound broke through. A cough, real, human, and near. Keanu moved forward quickly. The passage opened into another chamber, and there, sitting on a broken bench, was a man wrapped in a dark cloak. His face was bruised, pale, and weary. "You took your time," the man said, without looking up. "Who are you?" Keanu asked. The man looked up slowly, and Keanu's breath caught. It was Cardinal CM, the man who had written the letter. But he looked 10 years older than the last time they met. His eyes had sunk into his skull. His hands trembled. His lips were cracked. "How long have you been here?" Keanu asked. The Cardinal laughed weakly. "Time doesn't flow here. It waits." Keanu stepped closer. "You said he disappeared. Did he come here?" "Yes," the Cardinal said softly. "And he found what he wasn't supposed to." Keanu's voice cracked. "Is he alive?" The Cardinal looked away. "He is beyond alive now." Keanu didn't understand. "What does that mean?" "He stepped through the veil," the Cardinal whispered. "He saw what lies at the end of belief. And now, he can't return." Keanu shook his head. "You have to tell me more. People are afraid. The world is asking questions." "Then they are waking," the Cardinal said, his voice gaining strength. "And that's good. But if you want answers, you must do what he did." "What did he do?" The Cardinal pointed to the wall behind him. There, carved into the stone, was a massive door, taller than a man, wider than any church gate, but without hinges or handles. Instead, a single sentence was written in faded red ink. "Abandon all questions. Step forward with truth." "You can't open that with force," the Cardinal said. "Then how?" Keanu asked. "With memory." And just like that, Keanu understood. This was not about power. It was about pain. He stepped forward and placed his hand on the door. His mind flooded instantly. He saw himself as a child, clinging to his mother's hand. He saw the hospital room, where his daughter was never born. He saw the funeral, the loneliness, the nights he screamed into pillows. He saw himself walking through crowds, smiling for strangers, while bleeding on the inside. Tears ran down his cheeks. He whispered one word, "Please," and the door began to open, not with a sound, not with light, but with a pulse of emotion so strong it made him fall to his knees. He wasn't stepping into a room. He was stepping into a truth, and whatever waited inside was not human. Beyond the door of truth, the moment Keanu crossed the threshold, everything shifted. He didn't feel himself walking anymore. There was no ground, no sky, no scent of stone or echo of footsteps. It was like falling without motion, like dreaming without sleep. He opened his eyes, and for a brief second, he saw everything and nothing at once. There was no room beyond the door, at least not in the way the human mind understood space. It was a sphere of memory, suspended in silence, lit not by flame, but by presence. Every inch shimmered with scenes from lives not his own. A woman brushing her dying father's hair, a child praying in a war zone, a soldier laying down his weapon in front of the enemy. Kindness, sacrifice, truth, not written in books, but carved into the air like living wounds. Keanu took a step forward, and the ground formed beneath him, a smooth path, made of moments. With each step, a memory played around him, not as a sound or vision, but as a feeling. Warm, painful, real. Then the presence made itself known. Not a voice, not a shadow. Just a pressure that wrapped around his chest like a hand made of light. "You have come far." Keanu stopped walking. He didn't know how the thought reached him. It wasn't spoken. It wasn't heard. It was simply there, inside his bones. "Who are you?" he whispered. "We are what remains, when truth is buried." Keanu's eyes searched the shifting air around him, but there was no form. Only a shimmer of movement, like heat above a flame. He remembered what the Pope had said in his letter. "They will not bind you with chains, but with memory." And suddenly the air grew colder. A shape appeared before him. And this time, it had a face. It was her. Jennifer. The woman he had loved, gone for years, standing in front of him with eyes full of life, hair falling the way it used to after a long sleep. She was wearing the blue sweater she had once hated but wore for him because he liked it. And she smiled like the world hadn't fallen apart. "Keanu," she said softly. His knees buckled. He wanted to run to her, to hold her, to fall into her arms and forget everything he had seen. He took one step forward, but then stopped. Something was wrong. Her eyes were too still, her smile too fixed, and she wasn't breathing. "You're not her," he said. The figure tilted her head. "Does it matter? You missed her. I'm here. And if you stay, you'll never lose her again." Keanu's throat tightened. "She died." "And what is death?" the figure asked. "If not a door?" He shook his head. "You're not here for me. You're here to stop me." The figure stepped back, face still soft, still tempting. "Why suffer more when peace is offered freely? Your pain is heavy. Let it go." He clenched his fists. "You're not real." The figure vanished. In its place, the chamber shifted again. Now he was in a hospital room, a small one, empty except for one chair and a crib that would never hold a baby. The grief rushed in like a flood, as sharp as the day it happened. Keanu turned, away, heart pounding. Another whisper reached him. "Why do you carry the dead when the living need you?" He closed his eyes, breathed slowly. "Because I remember them," he said. "Because they made me who I am. Because pain teaches." And the moment he said that, the entire chamber cracked with light. The illusions faded, and something moved in the center of the room. Not a figure, not a ghost. A book, floating above a stone pedestal surrounded by rings of spinning symbols. The pages were not paper, but threads of memory woven into something eternal. This was the truth the Pope had seen. Keanu stepped forward. As he reached for it, the air thickened. Not to stop him, but to warn him. He touched the book, and the visions began, flashes of the Vatican. Not the one people saw on TV, but its bones, its hidden rooms, its secret councils, faces in robes whispering in forgotten languages. Eyes, too. Wide. Fingers too long. Meetings not of faith, but of control. Deals made not with nations, but with shadows. He saw the Pope arguing, pleading, refusing to sign something. Then, he saw the price. A man dragged down a narrow hall, a body buried, without name or record, and a voice, one voice, screaming into the darkness. "We've become what we feared." Keanu staggered back, gasping. The book closed itself, and in that silence, a truth settled in his chest. The Pope hadn't disappeared. He had been hidden, locked away not in exile, but in protection, because he had discovered something that couldn't be spoken, only felt, a prophecy, one that claimed that faith itself would be rewritten, not by war, not by fire, but by silence so deep that people would forget why they ever believed in love at all. Keanu turned to leave, but the path behind him had changed. Someone was waiting at the threshold. It was the woman from before, the one who had given him the coin. "Did you see it?" she asked. "I saw enough." "Then we must move," she said quickly. "They know you're awake now." "Who?" "The ones who buried the truth," she said. "The ones who silenced him." Keanu followed her through a new tunnel, carved. In haste, walls still raw. "They want to rewrite the world," she said, her voice sharp, urgent. "And to do that, they need one last thing." "What?" Keanu asked. She didn't stop walking. "You," Keanu froze. "Why me?" "Because you spoke the truth on air," she said. "You lit the match, and now they want to use you to burn everything else down." They climbed toward the surface, faster now, the light returning in broken flickers. But before they reached the final steps, a low voice echoed through the tunnel. Not shouted, not spoken, just present. "You have seen too much." The woman turned pale. Keanu stepped forward. "Then you should have left the door locked." The man who knew too much. They didn't reach the surface. Not yet. The final steps collapsed behind them as the voice echoed louder, not through the air, but through the soul. It wasn't like a sound. It was a feeling that dragged your heart through cold hands and made your thoughts stop just long enough for fear to climb in. Keanu grabbed the woman's wrist, steadying her before she could fall into the dark. The tunnel around them seemed to breathe now, pulsing faintly, like a living thing had been hiding beneath the stone all this time, just waiting to wake. "We're not alone," the woman whispered. "We never were," Keanu replied. She didn't ask how he knew, because they could both feel it now. Something ancient had stirred, and it didn't like the truth being remembered. They hurried down a side corridor, one she hadn't planned to take. The stone felt warmer here, the air heavier. Not with heat, but with memory, old memory. The kind people lock away because it hurts too much to remember. "Where does this lead?" Keanu asked. "To a chamber that was sealed before the first pope," she answered. "Before there was even a name for the church." Keanu frowned. "Then why is it still here?" Her reply was quiet. "Because some truths are too big to erase. They can only be buried." They moved fast, but the tunnel never seemed to end. Every few meters, they passed carvings, symbols even older than the ones near the black door. Not religious, not cultural, primal, drawn by hands that had touched something no human ever should. "They're watching us," she whispered. "Not from behind, from inside." Keanu didn't ask what she meant. He understood now. This wasn't a matter of gods or demons. This was about something deeper, something that lived in the spaces between silence and memory. They reached a stone door, circular, untouched by time. No handles, no keyholes, just a hollow in the shape of a hand. She looked at him. "It must be yours." Keanu stepped forward. He had no reason to trust this place. No reason to believe he was meant for anything. He was just a man who had known loss. But maybe that was why he was chosen. Maybe the ones who break and still keep. Walking are the ones who are needed most. He placed his hand against the stone. The door dissolved into dust. The chamber beyond was circular, low-ceilinged, carved with symbols on every surface. It wasn't grand. It wasn't holy. It felt forgotten. And in the center stood a single wooden chair, not gold, not marble, just wood. And on it sat a man with his back turned. Keanu froze. The woman took a single step forward and stopped. "Do you know who that is?" Keanu didn't answer, because in his chest he already knew. The man in the chair was still. His hands rested gently on the arms, his head slightly bowed. Keanu walked forward slowly, and when he reached the other side, he saw his face. The Pope. Pope Francis. But this was not the man the world remembered. His face had aged beyond recognition. His skin pale, stretched thin over sharp bones. His lips moved, but no sound came. Keanu leaned in closer. Then the Pope's eyes opened, and they weren't human anymore. Not exactly. There was still something behind them, something kind, something broken and beautiful, but layered with a shimmer, like light was trapped inside him, fighting to be seen. "You came," the Pope whispered. His voice was dry, cracked, but real. "They said you were gone," Keanu replied. "Am. And I'm not," he said. "I left the world, but not the reason I loved it." The Pope tried to rise, but his body failed him. Keanu caught his arm gently and helped him sit upright. "What happened to you?" he asked. The Pope looked into his eyes, and then slowly, painfully, began to speak. "I saw the beginning," he said. "Not of time, not of earth, the beginning of belief." Keanu listened, breath caught in his throat. Before temples, before scripture. "There was only one truth," the Pope continued, "that we are meant to remember each other, not with words, not with prayers, but with presence, with pain, with kindness." His eyes filled with tears, but something came, something that saw love and feared it. It didn't destroy it. It twisted it. It turned faith into control, sacrifice into spectacle. It entered. History like a shadow enters light, never replacing it, just poisoning the corners. Keanu's voice shook. "And the church?" The Pope looked away. "Some of us tried to fight it. Some forgot they ever could." "Why tell me?" Keanu asked. The Pope's smile was so tired it looked like a scar. "Because you still feel pain." The woman behind them stepped forward. "They're coming. They know where he is now." The Pope nodded. "Then it's time." "For what?" Keanu asked. "For someone else to carry the memory." Keanu felt a cold weight settle on his shoulders. "What do you mean?" The Pope reached into his robes and pulled out something small. It was not a key, not a symbol. It was a piece of stone, broken, faded. But Keanu recognized it instantly. The tombstone from a grave that didn't exist anymore. His daughter's. His hands trembled as he took it. How did you get this?" Keanu asked, barely able to breathe. "Because she isn't gone," the Pope said softly. "Not in the way the world believes. Every soul that loves echoes. And when enough echoes gather, they become a light." Keanu dropped to his knees. The Pope placed his hand on Keanu's head. "You are not a prophet. You are not a savior. You are a mirror, and the world is about to look at itself." The woman turned sharply. "They're here." Shadows filled the corridor. Not men, not demons, but things shaped like memory. They wore the faces of people long lost. They smiled with mouths that had never known joy, and they whispered, "Give him to us." Keanu stood. He didn't run. He stepped in front of the Pope and stared at the shadows. "You don't scare me," he said quietly. "Then you haven't lost enough," they replied. He closed his eyes, saw every loss, every moment, every grief, then opened them again. "You're right," he said, "and that's why you'll never win." The chamber shook, light erupted, and the shadows screamed. Echoes of the last truth. The scream of the shadows was not made of sound. It was deeper than that, an unraveling, a tearing of everything false. They convulsed in the corridor like smoke fighting to stay solid. Their faces flickered, warped, and shifted with every echo Keanu refused to fear. For a moment they tried to take form again, to wear the faces of his past, but it was useless now. He had remembered too much. He had seen them for what they were, not monsters, not demons, but reflections of forgotten pain. They were born from unspoken grief, from centuries of lies disguised as comfort. They fed on silence, on people's willingness to forget what hurt too much to carry. But Keanu had carried it all, and now he stood. Behind him, the Pope clung to the last threads of breath, his face pale, eyes dimming, but his hand gripped Keanu's wrist with unexpected strength. "They will return," the Pope whispered. "Not here, not now, but they always return." Keanu nodded. "Then let's leave something behind they can't. Erase." The chamber began to crumble around them, not in chaos but in peace, as if the truth no longer needed a hiding place. The symbols on the walls faded. The strange stone under their feet softened. The air lost its weight. "It's time," the woman said. Keanu turned to her. "What happens now?" "We go back," she said. "But not the same way. Not the same people." Keanu looked down at the stone piece in his hand, the fragment of his daughter's grave. It still pulsed faintly, not with sorrow, but with something softer. Light. And when he looked up again, the Pope was gone. Not fallen. Not taken. Just gone. His robe folded gently on the chair, a single feather resting on top, though there had been no birds here. The woman placed her hand on the center wall, and a door appeared. A simple wooden frame, like one you'd find in an old farmhouse. No carvings, no marks, just an opening. Keanu stepped through, and he was no longer beneath the Vatican. He was standing in the middle of a crowd, back in the world, outside the studio where his interview had aired days ago. He looked around in stunned silence. Everything was as it had been. The streets, the people, the sky. But something had changed. Not outside, inside, in him and in them. A ripple had begun. People were no longer scrolling past truth. They were feeling it, remembering it. News headlines had shifted. Not to panic, but to questions. Questions that mattered. Why are we told what to fear? Who decides what we forget? What is love when it is stripped of performance? Keanu walked slowly through the city, unnoticed at first, like a ghost returning to a life once lived. But people began to turn. One by one they looked up from their screens. Some gasped, some wept, not because of fame, but because they saw something in him. Not a celebrity, not a hero, but someone who had broken and still chosen to walk, and that gave them permission to do the same. Within days, the truth began to spread. Not the dramatic parts, not the conspiracies, but the softness underneath it all. Videos of Keanu's words resurfaced, but this time, people listened with their hearts. The interview was no longer trending. It was transforming. Churches across the world began to ask hard questions of themselves, not to defend, but to grow. One cardinal in Argentina stepped down and gave all his wealth to build homes for widows. A nun in South Africa opened a healing center for victims who had been silenced for decades. A teenager in Tokyo started a project, collecting letters from people who had never told their stories. Within a week, she had over 10,000. No one knew why this movement began. They only knew it started when a man who had lost everything chose to feel instead of fight, and far. Away beneath a sky untouched by city lights, Keanu sat quietly by a lake. No camera, no audience, no headlines. Just him, and a single photograph in his hand. It was old, faded. It showed a woman with her head on his shoulder, and behind them, the faint outline of a nursery. He didn't cry. He didn't smile. He just breathed. Because now, he understood what the Pope had tried to say. The world does not end when you lose someone. It ends when you forget why they mattered. As the stars appeared overhead, Keanu closed his eyes. Somewhere, across oceans and languages and boundaries, someone was whispering a memory out loud for the first time. Somewhere else, someone was choosing to stay alive for one more day. And somewhere deep inside the walls that still stood in silence, a shadow flickered. But it did not move, because the light had become too loud.